everybody. Happy Monday morning to you. Hope you guys have had a great weekend. Check my audio levels real quick. I had some updates that I was doing on the system over the weekend, kind of messing around with a few things. So let me move this a little closer to my mouth. I think I got this a little better. All right, good. So hopefully you guys have had a great weekend. You got some rest, feel refreshed, ready to start another week of real estate grind, if you will. I guess in some ways it is a grind. Sometimes we get caught up in doing the same things over and over and over again and not feel like we're making any kind of results or getting anywhere with that. I will say that does tend to be the feeling sometimes. Sorry, I'm still trying to adjust my audio real quick. I don't want my mic to blow out. There we go. Hone in just a little more. If you're here in the comments, let me know if that audio is good. I'm trying to get that audio to be balanced really, really well. So it's kind of a work in progress. It's hard to know what it is when you're filming live until afterwards. So I'm just trying to get that to hone in a little bit. So anyway, back to what I was saying. Like, it was a good weekend. Hopefully you guys had a good one as well. Leading in, I can't believe Christmas is this week. So we are just a couple days away from Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day and all that. I typically will, and I've done this for many years, is I take off for Christmas. I obviously the day of Christmas, Christmas Eve, and that kind of stuff. But I have traditionally taken off between Christmas and New Year's as a time to just kind of step back, be with the family, get ready for the new year, hit the new year hard. But I was talking to a friend yesterday about this at church, and we were talking about just, vacations. Like when we take off from work, typically what ends up happening is you take off from work and you're going somewhere, you're going on a vacation, or you're doing something proactive and you got a plan and that kind of stuff. Interestingly, when we do this in this time of year, I don't ever have a plan. It's a time to really just not have one. It's like take some time off and just let your mind rest, have rest with your family, reconnect. I've always enjoyed this time. So I'm not saying you have to do it in the Christmas time, but I would say I encourage you to figure out a time in the year where you don't have, like, you can call it a staycay or whatever, or you go do something, but it's more spontaneous. We've done that multiple times. Last year, we spontaneously went to Washington, D.C. as a family during this time. And hey, let me just say, if you're wanting to go to Washington, D.C., to be honest, this is a good time to go. Most people, especially like heading into the New Year's, most people leave Washington, D.C. and go north into the bigger cities to celebrate the New Year's. We found it to be not very busy. The weather was still kind of favorable. So it was great. It wasn't crowded. We were able to get around and navigate that. So anyway, I encourage you to do that. But it was a good weekend. Friday night we had time with some friends. My daughter had friends over. They went ice skating. I spent some time with the dad, and then they all came back to our house, had a good dinner with friends, and just kind of fellowshipped. Saturday, we're not running anymore. Kind of in a break of cross country and all that, and then we transition into indoor track. But right now, it's kind of that dead period. So we're home on the weekends, like on Saturdays, and that's nice. So this Saturday, we spent the time wrapping gifts, kind of getting prepared for Christmas. Just kind of being together as a family again, preparing things. We worked around the house, got some stuff done. So that was good. But overall, it was just kind of a nice, relaxing time at home. Then Sunday came. Sunday was just a typical like Christmas Sunday, like going into Christmas. We had Sunday school and we had worship. Then we went out to eat with some friends for lunch, had pizza just to kind of relax. Then we went back to church and actually went Christmas caroling. If anyone knows me, I'm not a singer at all. I enjoy singing. People don't enjoy hearing me sing, and I know my lane. But at the same time, this was a great experience. And we've done it a couple times, but going together and going to Christmas caroling, we went to some rest homes, and man, you talk about touching. Some of these people that was in the rest home, that might have been the biggest joy that they have during this season. And multiples of them were saying how they kept looking at the time, waiting for us to arrive. Some of them suffered from dementia and that kind of stuff. So it was really sad, but at the same time, us singing brought some hope and peace to them, and they sang along with us, and it was just a really, really cool time. So I think even though I'm not a big fan of singing and Christmas caroling, I think it was definitely worth it by far. And it was a great thing to do with my family, even all my kids, be involved with them. And then then last night, we ended up going, getting some family together and going to see the a live nativity scene that was set up at our local fairgrounds. Driving through it, it was really well done. At the end, we went through the whole thing. We had audio to go along with us as we traveled, narration, and then at the end we went down and there had a nice little area set up with like snacks and hot chocolate and a bonfire, and then a little ride and things like that going on. So it was just a really cool time. So that was my weekend. Let me know in the comments if you guys had a good weekend, what you did, and if you feel relaxed, if you did some Christmas things with family. Let me know. It'd be awesome to hear from you guys. All right. Today, I am gonna touch a little bit on the housing market. I've been doing that a lot in the past couple weeks, talking about that, and I'm gonna keep doing that, especially like right now, because that is majorly in the headlines. But I'm gonna do it at the end. I'm gonna front load the live stream here with some more content and that kind of stuff. But the reason why I want to keep talking about the real estate market, especially this time of year, is the amount of articles, and also more specifically, not so much the articles, like on TikTok and Instagram. Like I'm watching a lot of these news cycle, or a lot of the people that are commenting on the real estate economy are just selling a lot of hype. The intensity of talking about the housing industry. Like if you go into like TikTok or Instagram or YouTube and you just type in, real estate market in 2026 or real estate economy 2026, man, you get some really intense videos where people are talking very excited about everything, and very intense about the crash. And I think it's because it just helps get clicks and views. And I'm going to keep leaning into this because more often we need to be reminded than taught about new stuff. And we need to be reminded that what we're going into in 2026 is not what all the hype is saying. And again, it's not that we have a crystal ball and I can say, for specific ways that the market is going to be in 2026. But I can say we can look at data, we can look at history, we can also then use some of those projections to see what's going to happen in 2026 and come to a reasonable conclusion that would be a more plausible outcome given the market versus what you see on Instagram and Facebook and all these other places, right? They It's so easy to just get out there in the airwaves and not have any responsibility for the words you say. If I was sitting here just trying to get clicks, just trying to gain subscribers, just trying to get the views, right? So I can beat some kind of algorithm. If that was the game I was actually trying to play here, then I wouldn't be saying the things I'm saying, to be honest, because what I'm saying is not going to do that. The headlines that I'm running is not going to get all those clicks. It's not going to hone in, it's not going to appeal to that emotion that people are looking for. But what I'm hopeful to do is find those that want to lean into finding the truth. And here's a quote that I actually found in my devotion this morning that I'm gonna mention here because it is absolutely true. And the quote is this: "Put your feet in the right place before you stand." So in other words, like if I'm going to stand on something and I'm going to use my words to speak something as a fact or any kind of prediction, obviously I could still get some things wrong. But if I'm willing to stand and put my feet in a place, I need to make sure that that place I'm putting my feet in is the right place. And that right place needs to be based on truth that I can find in the information that I have. I can begin to kind of speculate, but if I'm going to come on here and talk, I want to make sure that I'm placing my feet in a very solid place that is right and truthful before I decide to stand upon that, right? So I'm not going to just take in whatever Facebook says, TikTok says, whatever, and just take it and say, wow, and I'm going to run with that so I can beat some kind of algorithm. My goal is to take information that I hear, apply logic, reason, and wisdom to it, and then see what the world is saying about it, then look at the data, and then come to a conclusion that I feel comfortable standing on. And so that's the game we're playing here. That's the mission of somebody that's wanting to seek the truth ultimately. And that's what I do when I read articles about the economy and where it might be heading. So that is very important for us to anchor ourselves in that I'm not going to stand on something that I can't find it's true and right. I'm going to make sure that before I say something, I have the evidence to say that. So anyway, there you go. That was my soapbox moment, but I do think that really does summarize what I'm ultimately trying to do here. You know, we have inside the company I'm with, we have over 250 agents. And that's 250 agents with different opinions and different things going on. And we are all challenged to be able to take information we have and bring it together and come to the conclusion about what is true and right before we begin to make decisions. And that's a responsibility that falls on me in my position with the company to help those agents in the company to succeed. It's also important for them to do likewise when they see articles on Facebook and media and social media, is to take that and be good at truth seekers and find and stand on what's right. All right. So, with all that being said, we've set the stage. Let's talk about the articles I'm going to cover today. I'm actually going to start off with something really lighthearted. And it's just going to be a giant gingerbread home that was built out of and replicated out of the Home Alone movie. So that'll be really, really cool. Then I'm going to go into more of some helpful things that's going to help you guys as real estate agents. I found a couple articles here. I'm going to break down, give you my opinions at the end and my kind of actionable items, if you will, like I always do. And then the title of this one is Beyond the Bottom Line, Metrics That Matter Most in 2026. In other words, what are the metrics that we're going to monitor and watch for in 2026 as real estate agents to help us grow in our industry? Then the next one I'm going to talk about is in regards to Instagram. You can probably use this as in the same line with TikTok videos and that kind of stuff. But the title of this is The Instagram Generation Buys Homes Too, Adapting Real Estate Marketing for Millennial and Gen Z Buyers. Last week we talked a lot about kind of who the next buyers are, and we talked about it being a more older demographic because of the lock-in effect. If you haven't been here, go back and watch some of those live streams. You'll kind of see where the narrative is kind of going in the media in regards to what we're talking about here, and we can pretty much come to the conclusion that majority of the buyers are going to come from the older demographic, which actually has money. The younger generation, the Gen Z and millennials, are a little bit cash strapped, but we don't want to negate that they still are a buyer and there's still a massive market for them. But we might have to be a little more creative in regards to how we help them get financed and help educate them and get them into the market to be a buyer. And then, like I said, I'll end with some data in regards to what the market is. So in that title, that was Housing Market Predictions 2026. It says no crash, no boom, just rebalancing. So this will be a good article to kind of just quickly go over to end the live stream with. So with all that being said, let's jump straight into the fun little article here. And I will say, this is not meant to be an article that we cover just to have fun. There is something of value inside of sharing this article to help you guys think through what you post on social media. So let me share this one up here real quick. Oh, my little thing is frozen. There we go. All right, so this is the first one we're going to talk about here. Let me zoom out just a tad. All right, this one says giant gingerbread Home Alone house pops up in Los Angeles and smashes Guinness World Record. Look at this thing. I mean, this is massive, guys. I love it. I mean, look at the look at the gingerbread. I mean, the detail, the awning, the light, the stairs, the bushes. I mean, amazing, isn't it? So, yeah, this is by Realtor.com News and Insights. This is a unique homes. So they have a category here, but I'm gonna come back to this here in just a second. You see where it says like unique homes? We'll come back to this. Keep that in mind. All right, here's the story. It says a massive 25-foot gingerbread version of the iconic Home Alone house has popped up in Los Angeles, smashing a Guinness World Record. Hey, just FYI, or quick ask. Has anybody watched Home Alone this year yet? I actually watched it with my daughter the other day, so for the Christmas season. All right. Disney Plus and Hulu set out to celebrate the film's 35th anniversary by building and or baking a likeness of the McAllister home using all edible ingredients on the corner of Hollywood and Vine. The edible imagining was created over 8 days in mid-December and measures 44,838 cubic feet. That's 58 feet long by 42 feet wide by 25.6 feet tall. That's amazing. This is crazy. I mean, mind you, this is not like a Lego build, right? Where everything has locking in. This is a gingerbread house, right? Which, if you've never put a gingerbread house together, they use icing to build your mortar to hold the whole thing together. So just fascinating. They got the Guinness World Record certificate dated 18/2025. Disney Plus is excited to celebrate a movie that's become such a holiday staple for families everywhere, mine included, says Zach Jerome, Disney Plus Vice President, Brand and Marketing Strategy. We can't wait to bring elements from the film into the real world so people can experience them up close. I think this is actually, let me see, is this Gonna be a video of that? I thought it was. Yeah, look, there's a time lapse of this thing going. Let's just how long is this thing? Minute and a half. Let's just watch this thing be constructed. This is fascinating. Okay, I don't know what they're okay, so they're using like metal as a structure there to kind of frame it around. So there's the base being built. I mean, doesn't that look like wood? Is it just me or does that look like wood? Yeah, I mean, maybe they're building like some kind of structure to then build the frame around. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued. I know that's no, that is actually that, that looks like plywood. I'm confused. So they're building the structure out of wood. Anyone else see that? Is that wood? And then they begin to frame it up. Yeah. Oh, okay. It's the roof. I mean, they had to use some kind of materials to make this happen. But man, look at the labor that went into this thing. Maybe there's more to the story. We'll have to read day 5. We'll have to read on down here to see what's actually happened here. But yeah, wow. Okay, so see, yeah, then they begin probably to put the gingerbread over it, I guess. There, it's coming together. Now you can see the house there pretty well. That's pretty awesome. There it is. Okay, good, 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 good. There's the finished product right there. This edible likeness of the iconic Home Alone house recently set a Guinness World Record. So there's the finished look of it there. Disney plus Hulu. Really, really cool. Oh, they even got a car out front. So there's the house from the movie. And then there's the replica. That's yeah, wow. That's really, really cool. All right, there's the certificate mounted right there. The project was intended to draw Home Alone fans back to the original family favorite film, starring Macaulay Culkin as Kevin McAllister, who thwarts a burglary. By everybody knows the story. The real brick and mortar house in Chicago, where the hijinks take place, was built in 1921, measured 9,126 square feet, and sold earlier this year for $5.5 million. So the actual real house did just sell for $5.5 million. All right, so here we go. Yeah, here's the data. It says to build the edible home, the creators used a kingdom's worth of ingredients, including 1,450 pounds of brown sugar, 550 pounds of granulated sugar, 4,263 eggs. You see it here. Look, flour, cinnamon, cocoa, ground sugar, all these type of things. Look at all that stuff. Amazing. This is the home renovation star Carter Osterhaus has on hand to receive the designation from the Guinness World Records official adjudicator. Yeah, wow. That's really cool. In addition to the building ingredients, countless potato flakes were used as snow. Those turned out to be essential with the Guinness World Record judge who was on hand to verify the creation going up in the air to get a bird's eye view of the structure to make sure that it was completely covered in edible ingredients. Okay, key word there was completely covered. So they did have a structure, which they had to have, right? You have to have something to put all this around. So that makes sense. That's why it was wood. So that's crazy about the flakes. That's awesome. And an OK plumbing and heating van like the burglars used was also an available selfie setting. Once the Guinness judge confirmed that the Home Alone gingerbread house had set a new world record and the non-edible confetti settled, the house site was opened up to the public for 2 nights. They could also take selfies in front of a few. Okay, so they opened it up to let you go look at it. Let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, very cool. I just thought it was kind of fun. It's Christmas week. This is just something that kind of popped up. I was like, yeah, I like this. I'm gonna share this on the stream today. But it does have some practical information in regards to this. So if you think about it, this is like a lighthearted thing. So what I would encourage you to do is in your social media advertising and kind of thinking through what that is, we post a whole lot of seriousness, a whole lot of serious posts about market data and homes being listed and homes being sold, me representing so and so. This is a lighthearted thing to share that's very, very social. I think in some ways, like the reels and TikTok and shorts and all those type of things have added a way for us to be a little more creative, a little more fun, a little more social in regards to social media platforms. So I feel like this is a way to kind of be a little more lighthearted to get people to really connect with you as an individual and what you think is fun and maybe a little bit of your fun side. So I would encourage you guys have fun with your social media. Put some stuff out there that's kind of fun and lighthearted like this. And then, I would lean into things that is like kind of pulp culture. Like, this is a good thing just to kind of share. Like, if you wanted to go live and do like a quick reel, and just talk about this. Hey, you guys, check this out. I got a new, this new thing I want to share with you guys. Check out this large gingerbread house. Live it up, have fun with it, be lighthearted, think through, just have fun with things. And bringing pop culture into your social media marketing is really cool. Now, I would say though, stay on point though. Don't hurt your audience by not being real estate specific. Point it back to real estate somehow, because everything you put out, everything you take time to do on social media is time out of your bank, especially if you're doing it during the work week. Social's fine, but tie it back into real estate somehow. You don't want to be a secret agent. You want everybody to know I'm in real estate, but yet you want to have fun at the same time, right? So I wouldn't try to be salesy with it, but I would, why not have a little fun with this, right? Now I want to go back. I'm just going to click this little link right here. It says unique homes. Yeah, so here we go. Discover unique homes on realtor.com, from log cabins to mansions to converted schoolhouses and more. So you got multiple things here. Like, if maybe you want to do like a weekly unique home section, right? Like 5 million glass walled ski cabin is like a real life snow globe perched above Lake Tahoe's Olympic Valley. So like, let's say you want to do something on this, like you want to just have a lighthearted thing. This is a great category in realtor.com called unique homes. You can go back and check and create content from. We can click on this and look, we can see the house. You can comment on the house and the design and the fun nature of this, and take pictures of it and post it up there and see what it looks like, right? Yeah, it does look like a globe. Gosh, look at the wood. Yeah, look at the wood intricate details on this. Like, every single one of those angles had to be cut and built in to bring a central focus. Now, I love photography. I find photography extremely fascinating. I love the visual appeal of it and how the eye tracks when you first look at things. And this picture immediately causes your eye to draw into the entire center of the frame. You can't avoid it. Now, the point of interest is kind of in the middle, which is like a stove and a refrigerator, but that's fine. If you look at the leading lines, it's pulling you in to see the entire room, and it really makes that a visually appealing house, right? So what a really cool house. But anyway, you could do something like this, like unique homes. How fun would this be to kind of pick this house apart and what they did in it? So anyway, I just thought it was kind of cool. What a good idea to kind of use a link like that and maybe incorporate that into your real estate social media marketing. I think that'd be just really, really cool. All right, let's jump into the next article here. This one is going to be titled, and this is by Realtor.com as well. This is Beyond the Bottom Line: Metrics That Matter Most in 2026. Now, I really want to focus in on this because when I was talking about data and how important data is, there are certain things that we have got to be very cognitive of keeping track of in our real estate business. We have to track these numbers because I have noticed this in my years. Now, given I've been doing this for 20 years now. Can you believe I've been a real estate agent for 20 years? And in that 20-year expanse of time, I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen multiple markets, I've seen multiple shifts, and I've seen a lot of agents that come, don't make any money, can't sell anything. And I've seen the ones that come and just have a huge success. They're super aggressive at the front end, and then they fizzle out. And then I've seen the ones that come in and they have a business mindset where they understand what they're tracking and how they build a business. And the reason why I'm leaning into this article is because these are the disciplines. And I mean disciplines because it does require some time to set aside to structure these things out so that I track these things. So they take time. So this is where I would say, if you want to be an agent that's in this for the long haul, and you want to be an agent that leaves and can retire and turn a book of business over to somebody else, and whatever that might look like, your exit strategy, all those type of things, you want to build a business. I will say a good business person is going to track their metrics. They're going to track their data. They're going to track what they do. They're going to do the things that make them money, generate business and referrals, and they're going to mess around and experiment with things, but they're never going to negate the things that are actually making them money. How do you know what those things are, though, if you're not tracking where you get your business from, right? So that's the challenge. So when I read this article this morning, I did read this one prior to this because we're going into 2026. You've heard me say this multiple times. I don't care for resolutions. I think resolution is just it's like I'm going to throw something out there into the world and just, this is what I'm striving for. No, I think Goals are great. I think sitting down, looking at how you generate business in 2025, what worked, what didn't work, being very intentional with looking at this data and looking at your metrics leads you to being able to make the corrective behaviors you need going into 2026, not resolutions. These are specific actionable items that you can instigate into your business, replicate, create systems and processes around, and ultimately become very successful and grow a business. So, this is that data. People don't like this stuff, but I'm telling you, if you want to be successful, you track certain things. All right. So let's jump into this article. This was December 22nd, 2025. Um, and beyond the bottom line, metrics that matter most in 2026. So here it is. If you only look at your gross commission income, which is referred to GCI in our industry, at year's end, you might be missing the real story. And that's true because here's the thing: when all you're doing is tracking that one number, you're not thinking through how that all happened. Some of that you might have just stumbled into by accident or by chance, not realizing what you did to get the GCI, right? If you don't track these things, you just responded to an external situation that just helped you to benefit, but you have no idea how to replicate it. So you've got to look at that GCI and figure out, how do I replicate what happened in 2025? Like, what do I take and how do I take this number and break it down over time to figure out how I build a plan from it, right? For years, many agents have measured success in terms of dollars and the number of deals closed. But as the market evolves, those numbers alone don't tell you how strong or sustainable your business really is. Revenue shows what happened, but it doesn't explain why. 100%. I can look at that number and say, yeah, buddy, I made some good money, I made some revenue, or maybe I didn't, but it doesn't tell you why it happened. It's just it happened. It's a fact. Oh, I made that money. Woohoo, yay me. So that's absolutely right. It can't reveal which marketing efforts actually worked, where clients are slipping through the cracks, or how loyal your past clients really are. To build a business that's consistent, resilient, and ready for growth, you need a fuller picture of performance. That means tracking not just what you earn, but how you earn it through metrics that measure your conversion efficiency, client experiencing, and marketing ROI. I'm going to go back up here just real quick. And you notice how it says where clients are slipping through the cracks or how loyal your past clients really are, to build a business that's consistent and resilient. So, part of the discipline that we're doing here on this live stream is, when I read these news articles, I'm not reading these news articles and saying, whoa, look at the market, just so I have information. I'm dissecting them, each and every one of them, trying to find where the opportunity lands. In every single bad news story, every single good news story, every single middle of the ground news story, there is an opportunity to be had in it. But we have to keep our ears open to hear what those things are. And by hearing and seeing that opportunity, we begin to do consistent things over time that then makes us resilient, which is where that word comes in, against any kind of market shift. Like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. The agents that pay attention to opportunity in every single market are the ones that are resilient through every single market. And ultimately, they answered the question, why? That's what they did. So that little statement right there, I think, is very important to stop and pause and think through, because that's what we want. We want a consistent, resilient, and ready for growth business when we talk about what we do, right? That's what we're trying to do here. How do we get there? How do we get there as real estate agents? What do we need to do that? All right. So here is what this article is laying out, which I need to just real quick. I want to give a shout out to the person that wrote this, because it is actually a really good article. Does it have? I don't see the name. Yeah. Well, if I had it, I'd give you a shout out because I think you did an excellent job. Is it over here on this side? Nope. All right. Well, let's just jump into this. All right. So, number one, they say this: conversion rates from lead to appointment to client. Your conversion rates reveal the real story behind your pipeline. Tracking how effectively you move prospects through each stage from lead to appointment to client shows where your business is thriving and where you might be losing opportunities. And it says start with your lead to appointment ratio. Okay. So, I get a lead. What is my percentage of going from lead to an appointment? What is that number? If I had 100 leads, how many of those hundreds came in and that I met with, right? Did I get appointments? So are your leads qualified? Are you responding quickly enough? Even slight delays in follow-up can make the difference between scheduling a meeting and losing a potential client. If you're using a CRM, review your average response time and experiment with automated text or email sequences to improve it. Here's the thing, to be able to track metrics like this, you do need to have a good CRM set up. So if you've not taken the time to go in and get your CRM set up where you are just always in there, every day you go into that system and you add notes to your clients, you talk about where you got them from, where that lead came from, you leave actionable notes inside of that where you can look at that and say, this is where I got my business. Like, and if you've not done that, let me encourage you to start doing that in 2026. Get in your CRM, figure out how it works, use it, because it is really kind of a central point for everything you do. Remember, your product is the people you work for, right? Sure, we can sell houses, but ultimately our clients is technically our product. And we need to figure out how we acquire that product, how we help that product, and how we sell that product, right? So that is a process. The next one says look at your appointment to client ratio. All right, so we got an appointment. Now we're going to go to a client. This metric reflects how well your listing presentation or buyer consultation connects with prospects. If the number is low, consider revisiting your value proposition, tightening your presentation, or practice more effective objection handling. Here's the thing, like guys, like none of us are perfect in our delivery and how we do things. If you go in confident, but willing to step back and then reassess, I think it's going to help you build a much better close ratio. I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. And I mentioned this once before, but there's a little tool that I use. It's called Ploud. It's a recording device that you can set down on the table. It will record that conversation audio. You can then use AI built into the system to track, and then you can begin to ask the AI questions in regards to this conversation. You could even ask it, say, hey, create a script dialogue to help me better handle this conversation next time. I would be in the data, researching how you do things, and be constantly tweaking that. All right. Then it says the next one, evaluate your client to close ratio. If deals are falling apart late in the process, dig into why. Are financing issues derailing transactions? Are clients feeling uncertain after making an offer? These insights can help you create better communication, touch points, and strengthen your partnership with lenders and service providers. So what's the steps here, right? We get a lead. What's my percentage of conversion for an appointment, right? An appointment doesn't mean there's a client, right? They have to physically sign something, a listing agreement, a buyer representation agreement. Appointment is just a customer at that point, right? Once we go from lead to appointment, where our goal is from appointment to client. So how does that take place? That's your listing presentation, your buyer consultations, all right? So that's that phase. Then what are we doing after that? Once we get someone signed on an agreement, we're trying to close. Either we're trying to get the home sold or we're trying to get the buyer to buy, right? So those are the things. If you evaluate those three categories, that's going to help you tailor your goals for 2026. All right. Number 2, the client experience. Measure loyalty, not just satisfaction. Here's the thing. This would be a metric that I would say almost every business really leans into, because ultimately people are ruled by their emotions first. They are stimulated by those emotions that causes them to have some kind of response when you're giving some kind of experience to them. So when you're talking about experience, I want you to think as a buyer or a seller. And when you got your listing presentation, you got a buyer presentation, buyer presentation and listing presentation. What is the experience that you're relaying? How good is that presentation with that client to help them to convert? What does that look like? And do you need to tweak that anymore, right? So I would really get into that, figure that out, and then make sure that anything that doesn't feel good as a good experience that you're giving to them or a consistent one, tweak it. Get in there and start tweaking it just a little bit, because we want loyalty. We want loyalty. Every agent wants happy clients, but that satisfaction is only the starting point. What really drives long-term growth is loyalty. Clients who come back, refer others. That's the game we play, guys. Do not play in this one moment. Play the long-term game. All right? Refer others and advocate for you long after closing. To understand how you're performing, track the signals that reveal client loyalty, not just one-time feedback. Start with your testimonials and online reviews. They're public proof of your service quality and can highlight what clients consistently appreciate or where they might feel let down. Next, look at referrals and repeat businesses as percentage of your total transactions. Where's the percentage of most of your business coming from? Because here's the thing too, again, going back 20 years of experience here, guys, is, when you've started to make it and you've got a business that is now like a snowball effect, when your ratio of client acquisition comes mostly from repeat business, or more importantly, that number, referral business, right? Because you've done a couple things. Not only did you give a client experience that they feel comfortable with, you've gained the ultimate trust when they refer somebody back to you, which is a vote of confidence in you. They are going out on a limb to say, this agent knows how to do their job. So do not treat that referral business lightly. Understand that when you get a referral, that client is very, very precious, because that client probably has a relationship with the person that did the referring, right? So how you treat that client matters a lot to both people. So they want both. And then what happens when you create two more experiences? This person that was referred to you then goes back to the person that did the referring. And what do? They talk, and they talk about how great you are. And that is a snowball effect. So when you start seeing that happen in your business, guess what? You've built a model that is working, and you lean more and more heavily into that market, and you begin to see more and more success. So that's what we're aiming for. That is what's driving us to do these things. All right. All right. Consider collecting feedback right after closing. We're going to jump on down. I think I'm going to sneeze. Sorry. Maybe. Live. I usually sneeze twice. So we'll see. All right. Number 3, marketing ROI. Focus on what's actually working. So we're looking for return on investment, right? You can't improve what you don't measure, and that's especially true for your marketing. Every post, ad, postcard, or email takes time and budget. The key is knowing which ones are actually driving results. This is the thing, is most of the time, and I've noticed this across the board, I've been guilty of this, where you just get busy. You get so busy that you just begin to pay attention to what other people are doing, that you assume is working because it looks good and appealing to you. Like, you might be on social media and you see an agent do a certain type of post and you feel like, I need to be doing that. And then you see someone else and you're like, oh, I need to do that too. And then you see someone, oh, I need to do that. And then before you know it, you've got this just misassociated marketing plan that doesn't have any true measurable results from it. And you're just being dictated by what other people are doing. And we're not verifying that if it's actually working. It just looks good. But is it actually converting for them? Is it actually helping them to succeed? If you want to look at that, no, well, guess what? We got the MLS. You can go look at that agent's data on the MLS and say, wow, are they actually selling something? I mean, the ads look good. Is this actually working for them, right? So maybe if it's somebody in your own office that's doing this and you like what they're doing, maybe having a conversation with them and say, hey, so which one of these things are getting you the most results? Or, ask them questions. But anyway, tracking marketable ROI is very, very crucial, but it's a lost kind of art, to be honest. And again, we're all guilty of this. We get busy. We don't have time to research these things. Here go. What I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to help you guys to not have to spend so much time. If you take 1 hour to do this, hopefully it helps you, right? That's the ultimate goal. All right, track where your leads originate, whether they come from paid ads, organic search, social media, open houses, referrals. Knowing the source helps you identify which efforts deliver the best return on investment. Now, if you're unsure, refer to your CRM or lead capture forms to begin tagging each new lead with its source. CRM, guys, like, that is the foundation. You realize that all of your data that you're tracking, like when you go online and you make notes and you see someone else doing something, make a note of that. Where do you keep that note? Figure out that system first. If you have not done that, you need to step back and say, I need to start implementing some systems in place to capture this information that I can then quickly access to make these decisions, right? You need to figure out that process. Dig into cost per lead and cost per closed client. These numbers reveal how efficient each marketing channel truly is. Think about all the money you're spending. If you're buying Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com ads, like, what is that ROI? What is that metric? Are you getting a majority of your business from that? And then pause and think through your lead sources. Is my lead source, if I'm getting 90% of my business from an online portal, is that a good option? Maybe at first to build up a referral base, but you got to be really, really good at, converting and going through that whole ratio closing process and then giving that experience so then they refer. If you're not giving a good experience and your closed ratio is bad, you could be throwing a lot of money out there, right? You could be losing a lot of money. So if you start paying for ads and you're not good at closing the deal, you're wasting a whole lot of money. So I would step back and look at your systems and say, am I good at converting? Because if you're not, then this would come into place, right? It's like, well, I'm tracking, I'm not really converting. but I'm getting 90% of my leads from these online sources. If they change the way they do things, then I'm going to lose my 90% of my business model. I need to figure out the next way to do things, right? These are questions you need to be asking yourself. Dig into cost per lead and cost per closed client. Don't ignore engagement metrics either. Email open and click-through rates. Again, this is a CRM thing. It's going to track those things. Like when you send out an email to people in a drip campaign, are they open it and looking at it? That's a good metric to track. Social media saves and comments, website conversions. A long time ago, matter of fact, when I was talking about, I taught a class on building your sphere of influence at a big conference once. And the whole point of that thing was talking about SOI and like how to build your SOI, your sphere of influence. And people had all kinds of good ideas. And a lot of times we think it's kind of simple, right? I just go to my phone, I start pulling up, and I start thinking about close friends and family. And you think on the surface that is your sphere of influence, right? That's where you think that comes from. I pushed back with a lot of the suggestions in the crowd as I was asking that question. And I pushed back just a little bit. I'm not saying that's wrong. I say, yeah, you can probably get some SOI in that. But there's a better way to track your SOI, and it is through social media. So let's say you post multiple ads about properties and things that are selling, and you got helpful aids, you talk about unique houses, you have all this fun stuff going on. Do you realize that your SOI is in your comments and your likes? Like that truly is your SOI? Those are the people that are following you in everything that you do. So going to that data gives you a very tangible way to verify who your SOI is. Even if it's just 2 or 3 people that are constantly, and what you're looking for is that consistency of engagement. If you go through the past 3 months or so of your post and you find a person inside of there that is commenting, liking, or sharing your post consistently, that person is the hottest SOI member in your entire database. They are following, hanging on to your every word. That's somebody you bring into the VIP program, right? And you start treating them well. That's the person you buy Christmas gifts. They're on your Christmas card list. They're the ones that you take out to lunch and coffee and you talk to them and you build a relationship with. That's who you talk to, right? I used to do this all the time years ago when I was actively selling. I focused on those metrics. Now, Facebook was popular when I was selling. I don't think it's as popular now. I think Instagram, TikTok, and those kind of stuff are. All right. Remember that not every valuable marketing effort has an immediate ROI. A consistent newsletter, community event sponsorship, or educational video series may take time to convert, but they build trust, the currency that keeps your pipeline full. All right. Measure what matters most. All right. Let me give you some just really quick takeaways. I've kind of honed in on this a lot throughout this whole entire thing, but I'm going to zone in now on just a few things that I want to just point out and give you some actual actionable items to go with you. So especially as what we are seeing going in 2026, as the market does begin to kind of do some stabilization, agents really do need to be shifting from this vanity metrics. And when I say vanity, I'm talking about just that throwing out or looking at what other people are doing and saying, oh, I need to be like them. Like that vanity. I wish I was like them, that covetous, that kind of mentality. And they need to shift to more of what I would call efficiency of metrics, right? What is the efficiencies that I'm doing every single day, right? That indicate where my true business health and way of doing things is coming from. All right. So here's some action takeaways I would say. I would absolutely track my lead to appointment ratio. You need to know what that lead is, because if you are spending a lot of money to acquire a lead, you need to look at that dollar spent and figure out how many of those that I'm converting to an appointments. And if I don't have a good CRM set up to track this and measure this, you need to do so. You need to then track when you have a lead come in, the moment you have a meeting with them, you go into that CRM and you add a note, met with them on this date, right? And realize that if you have a very low ratio of this lead to appointment, this signals to you. This is a blaring signal that you're throwing a lot of money out there or a lot of time, and you need to do a faster follow-up, better qualification, better conversion. You need to work on scripts. You need to go lean into that heavily. So if you're at that place where you're generating leads, but you're not converting that to appointment very well, you need to lean in there, because how do you move on to that next place, right? Where you go from appointment to client and from client to close. You got to start there. And that starts with that CRM and then layering that business model from there, right? Then what I would then say is when you start talking about your experience with your clients, this is the next action point I would say, is I want you to go through and just move way beyond basic satisfaction measures like, just just the frills of being real estate. I want you to look and say, is my presentations that I'm giving to my clients creating the experience? And if I give a presentation, and if is it just marketing, or do I actually do the things that I say I'm going to do inside of that marketing plan? Do I say I'm going to do the things inside of that experience that I've given them at the beginning? Do I follow through with that? Do I have a plan in place to execute upon the high sales stuff that we see in listing presentations to actually create that experience? I would caution you that if you look at this and you say, I'm making a lot of promises and I don't consistently hit those promises, I would remove them out of your listing presentations and then focus on the things that are working. And if you want to then, bring those back into play at some point because you want to be that type of agent, then figure out the systems and processes to add that back into your plan. But you need to be building credibility and creating a good experience. And then I would absolutely is stop burning budget. Stop burning the cash, right? You need to go back and look at your marketing ROI. What is working? What is the high click through? What's converting to appointments? What is it? And then if you can find out what is bringing the highest conversion, pivot your funds and your time towards that targeted effort. That will actually produce those clients for you that can lead to this whole entire process, right? So that's where you want to lean into. All right. Good. Very good. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. I think that was very important for us. If you notice, I'm setting the stage for two different things right here. I'm setting the stage for the market and what's 2026 is going to go into, and I'm trying to set the stage, getting you guys ready to be ready for 2026 with two things. If you've been doing these type of things, you're really good at tracking data. These are the action items to help you kind of get to that next level. The second thing is I'm making you think. If you're not doing this isn't about putting condemnation on you or putting pressure on you to do these things. I genuinely want you to succeed. Okay. I want you to do the things that's required to build a business. That is goal number one. So if you've not gotten these things in place, if you don't have a good CRM, then you need to make the first quarter of 2026 the time to put it all into play, right? You need to sit down, figure that system. You need to figure out all the technology that is available to you and how it integrates together to help you stay on point, to stay in communication with your clients. Figure out something that helps you to do that. All right. Let's jump into the next one here. I got two more here. This one right here is the Instagram generation buys homes too, adapting real estate marketing for millennial and Gen Z buyers. Got a spam call coming in. Oh boy. All right. So this one right here is by Social Samosa. It's a guest post by Social Samosa on December 22nd, 2025. Pause for a drink. Let's make sure that article did not lock up on me. All right. Very good. So I'm shifting gears just a little bit because I said this at the beginning of the stream, but if you're just now tuning back in, I talked a lot last week about the next movement of buyers in 2026 being more of your older demographic baby boomers because they have the cash. But at the same time, I don't want to negate and say, well, millennial and Gen Zs don't have money they can't buy. That's not true. There are a lot that does. And there's also different creative ways to think about how to help this generation buy homes, right? Technically my generation. So we definitely want to lean into this entire concept here and make sure that we're not missing a demographic just because we're honed in on just the data too much. And I think this article brought some light to that conversation. So I thought it'd be appropriate to talk through this. Sri Lotus Developers and Realty's Ashka Pandit explains how real estate must go digital first as millennials and Gen Z discover homes on Instagram, valuing narrative, transparency, and community. I'm going to sneeze again. Tis the season. All right. Ultra luxury real estate traditionally catered to established business families, global investors, and long-term wealth builders is witnessing a demographic shift with the entry of millennial and Gen Z homebuyers whose first point of engagement is not a property showcase, but Instagram content. So the reason why I leaned in on this, because I will say a lot of people are beginning their search on Instagram. They're starting there. They're starting to pull properties up there. They're looking there more and more. So how do we tailor our marketing? How do we think through social media? Full transparency. I'm not the biggest social media person. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I think it has a big use case. Matter of fact, this past couple of weeks, I just started TikTok. So you can find me on there. It's Agent Mentor Adam. Follow me. Appreciate it if you do. I'm taking a lot of what I'm saying here and putting it out into bite-sized content. So if you're on TikTok, check me out over there. Um, you know, I but anyway, I think there's a whole demographic of people that are on those platforms, and if you want to appeal to a broader audience and you need to work this into your marketing plan, you need to figure out how to make this work. All right. Social media as a new discovery infrastructure. For younger buyers, social media functions as an informal discovery engine. Instagram informs early perceptions of architecture, design, neighborhoods, and lifestyle possibilities. What earlier generations found through brochures or gated events, this generation finds through curated visual communication. So here's an interesting thing too, is there is this, if you go onto Instagram right now and you type in, real estate, housing or something like that, you're going to find a lot of influencers on there that are talking about their homes and like the way they're designing their homes and what they're putting into their homes and what they're doing by doing all those videos, because this generation is watching and swiping a ton. And if they're if they're interested at all in real estate, the algorithm goes to work and it begins to suggest all those things. So there's a major, and we say influencers, there is a major influence inside of Instagram that causes people to like and comment that is pervasive. And it dictates what people look for when it comes to homes. So in this generation, the Gen Zs and millennials, they lean very heavily. So what is posted on Instagram tends to be what they look for when they go to look for homes. So when you're looking at Instagram as a researcher, you go through there and you start looking at the design trends that the influencers are talking about. You can almost bet your bottom dollar that when you have conversation with this generation, this is going to come into the talk track. So we need to be kind of paying attention about what is going on in Instagram. Designing narratives that convey substance. Millennials and Gen Zs, though receptive to visuals, look for meaning in what a space represents, how it supports their lifestyle, and whether it aligns with their long-term aspirations. Effective communication articulates the context of a development, including the significance of its land parcel, the intention behind its master planning, and the long-term value embedded in its location. Remember, in some ways, what this generation is looking for is a specific lifestyle. That's what that statement is saying. I'm looking for a specific lifestyle. Immersive digital experiences as decisive accelerators. Short format content and virtual environments have become functional tools. High quality walkthroughs, precise digital renderings, and thoughtfully produced visual exploration allow buyers to understand spatial flow, landscape integration, and design nuances before visiting a site. So we're talking about 3D mapping, we're talking about the 3D modeling, we're talking about virtual staging, all these type of things is not necessarily for them to look at that and say, this is what I want. I want it to look that way. What it's really portraying, though, is how would my lifestyle work in the flow of this property? That's the image that we're portraying. So if you're creating this kind of content, remember, it's not so important about what everything looks like as much as it about what the lifestyle offers. So when you start talking and marketing to this demographic, you really need to lean into like, what is the lifestyle that they're going to live when they get there, right? Authenticity and transparency as trust builders. They don't want fake. They want that genuine person. So if you're wanting to do walkthroughs with your phone and talk through a house, you're talking about the flow and the functionality. You're focusing on the lifestyle, what it's like to live there, and let the mistakes happen. Like make mistakes, the ums, the uhs, and all this awkward stuff that you do. They don't care. They generally want that. As a matter of fact, in a world where AI is taking over everything, that authenticity can go a long way, because I don't know about you guys, but as I swipe and I watch videos, I'm beginning to question everything I'm watching. Like, is that AI? I mean, just the other day, I was watching a video and it was of a dog, doing whatever. And I was showing it around everywhere. And this is how, I've grown up with social media. I've grown up with media. I try to be discerning on what I see. But then I was like looking at this, I was laughing. I was like, this is so funny about what this dog is. And I like immediately show it to my son, right? And he goes, Dad, that's AI. I was like, no, you just watched this. How do you know it's AI? Like, what are you talking about? It's AI. And so like, I kept challenging him. I was almost arguing with him. I was like, dude, this actually happened. This is hilarious. It's just a little dog funny thing. But he said, well, Dad, don't you see the woman in the back? And it was like in the very back, sitting on the couch, was this woman that was laughing at the dog doing something around the coffee table. And just subtle, like the hand glitched and it had like multiple fingers and it looked all wonky. But he noticed that, like he saw that. So his discerning eye was really on par to say, no, Dad, that's AI. I completely missed it. Like I completely missed it. And it's so frustrating that is how good AI is getting. So that's why I'm saying like that authenticity is so important, because I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to watch a video and then I go out and share it, and then it comes back as, Adam, that's a fake video, right? So those ums and mistakes, lean into them, mess up, make mistakes, and enjoy every bit of it. I mean, shoot, I'm sneezing like crazy over here. All right, community identity as a key value proposition. Millennials and Gen Zs prioritize the cultural and social identity of the community they are joining. They evaluate the broader ecosystem, privacy, connectivity, environmental sensitivity, wellness infrastructure, and overall quality of life enabled by the development. Digital platforms, personalization, and data led insights. You can use a lot of stuff I'm talking about here as data led insights, but make them visually and fun. Another defining expectation of this demographic is personalized engagement. They respond to information that respects their preferences, i.e., whether they are evaluating contemporary design, sustainability features, investment potential, or long term land appreciation. So they're looking for these type of things. Evolving from developers to digital placemakers. Millennials and Gen Zs are seeking brands that communicate with precision. I can't. Okay, and consistency and purpose. For ultra luxury real estate, this means transitioning from conventional project marketing to digital placemaking. Developers who work with strategic land banks and build with a generational perspective naturally align with this shift. Their focus on rarity, thoughtful planning, and lasting value resonates with a generation that sees homes not merely as purchases, but as meaningful, future oriented assets. So, really, what's happening there is engaging with developers that are building and talk about what kind of developments they're doing to address this way of life, like this lifestyle, right? So, let me just kind of step back just for a second, just a little bit here. So, we know what like traditional home ownership paths look like. We know what that looked like in the past, right? And for the baby boomers and the older demographic, that's still very true. But I will say this, that way of path into home ownership is flatlining for this younger generation. And in some ways, there's some rewriting of the rules going on here. We would typically, as an older demographic, we would look and say, look, I want economically, secure. I'm looking for brick. I'm looking for these type of things. I want, good neighborhood. I want a strong, they'll go in and analyze the house for structure. They're not paying so much attention to outside of like proximity to like hospitals and grocery stores and that kind of stuff. They're not looking for these efficiency units as much. They're not looking for sustainability. They're not having these kind of conversations. So it's there's a little bit of a shift going on. So if we're marketing into a different demographic and what that looks like, and if we go back into our metrics and we find that this data is more important, we need to lean into that. Like we need to say, well, if I'm marketing to home buyers that are older demographic, here's how I need to market. If I really want to, and I find myself connecting better with millennials and Gen Zs, here's how I'm going to market, right? So that's how we're framing our minds. They're two different pathways to home ownership. And then at the same time, we have to kind of go back even farther because the traditional way of buying a home works for the baby boomer, right? Because the money that they have in hand, 20% down, typical conventional loan. Millennials and Gen Zs, some have money, some don't. There's this give and take. They've grown up in a market where it's been very tight and a lot of shifting going on, and they're now moving into the buying arena, and they're not prepared for it. So we need to be talking about creative ways that financing takes place. Maybe there is a situation where a multi-generational type living structure works, where the baby boomer buys and the younger generation goes in as a second or something like that and lives in the basement and renovates the basement as a deal. Or maybe there's some kind of niche buyer strategy there. Maybe there's a co-buying strategy that takes place. Because like, what if they form an LLC and they buy a duplex and two couples move on each side and they own this thing together, and eventually the plan is to move out and they own a rental property together. And, so obviously there's some difficulty there to navigate that. But these are conversations that probably need to be happening to make this thing happen, right? And then I would say this is kind of leaning into this article is there is a little bit of a shift that really communication with this demographic is digital first, right? So I would be like prioritizing like text and Instagram DMs over direct phone calls. I mean, it's just what it is. I would probably lean into like ensuring that my first contact is very low pressure and probably more on the digital side. If I'm doing some cold calling and reaching out, I think that's the right play here. Lead with, if you're doing kind of marketing to tailor it towards them, if you're doing videos, talking through things, remember you're talking about sustainability, wellness, lifestyles, highlight the energy efficiency systems in homes like smart thermostats and things that have been done. Maybe think about, like if there's been updates that happen that let in more natural light. Maybe there's some areas or zones that are good for reading and building studios or having home offices. Those are the type of things that lifestyle is addressing in that younger generation. Younger generation, technically mine, but actually, I don't really know what the generations are, to be honest. It's so conflicting. I don't know. I was born in 1983, so I'm 42 years old now. I don't know where I fall. I think I'm might be on the edge of millennial. I don't really know. If somebody's out there, let me know. Where does 1983, 42 years old fall in that spectrum? I feel like I'm the forgotten generation to some degree. All right, let's go into the last one to wrap this up. Like I said, I want to touch briefly on the real estate market because we need to stay informed, engaged with what's going on. Because again, there's so much stuff going on in social media where it's just clicks, bait, and trying to get you to look at this and share it and that kind of stuff. We need to be reminded. We need to be reminded. I'm not going to rely on social media gurus out there. I'm sitting here as one, but I'm trying to hone you in on articles that speak to the contrary. And I encourage you, challenge me. Like, by all means, go out there and challenge me. I don't mind that. I challenge the data, come back, talk to me, bring it in the comments, and let's have a whole discussion about this. I don't mind to be challenged. I can get things wrong, guys. Like, I'm human. I can get things wrong. I'm not I'm very much aware of that. All right. This is the article that I found. It's Narada Real Estate Investments. I don't really know what this is. It just kind of, in my perusing, kind of came through this. I wanted a different source that I've not quoted from yet. And this one just had a really good, clear, you'll see here in just a second, a graph that kind of breaks down what's going to happen in 2026. I thought, this is a good summary here. So it says right here, the U.S. housing market in 2026 isn't heading for a dramatic crash or a wild boom. We've been saying this over and over and over again. Instead, expect a period of modest growth and gradual rebalancing, or like a reset. That's kind of what I'm saying, but like a rebalancing makes sense, right? Think of it less like a roller coaster and more like a steady climb with some bumps along the way. This is good news for many of you who have been waiting on the sidelines, feeling that sense of uncertainty about where things are headed. Housing market predictions 2026, no crash, no boom, just rebalancing. All right, let's just jump straight down here to wrap this thing up. I don't like where these social media things is. I mean, Norad, if you're watching, I would reposition those. Not that I'm trying to critique, but like it cuts off the words, guys. See that? That's just OCD-ness. I'm sorry. All right. What's driving this predictable path? So, what makes me confident in saying things will be relatively stable? It's a combination of economic factors, availability of homes, and of course, the cost of borrowing money. Those are great categories to begin forming an opinion and perspectives on. We just talked about this as far as our metrics. When you're talking about the economy, you go to the metrics, you go to the data, and you see what's actually happening. So he's going to summarize what he has found inside of the data. I keep saying he. I did not look at the name. Is there a name on this? Marco Santarelli. This is posted December 21st, 2025. All right, what's driving? It says interest rates, still a big deal, but getting better. The days of getting a mortgage for practically free are long gone, and honestly, they probably won't be back anytime soon. We talked about this. 6% is the new 4%. I keep saying that. That's where we're at. We're not going to see this crazy direction going. That era is gone. 2000, 2020 or 2021, 2022, all those years. That rate's gone, right? 6% is the new 4. Just get used to it. The experts are saying that the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate will hover around 6.3 in 2026. That's down a bit from where it's been. We've hashed this. This is still the talking track, right? More homes for sale, but not exactly overflowing. This is a great point. One of the biggest headaches for buyers in recent years has been the lack of homes to choose from. Thankfully, that picture is improving. By 2026, we're expected to see the supply of homes for sale rise to about 4.6 months. This is a much healthier number than the 3 to 4 months we've been dealing with lately. Think of it this way. If no new homes were listed, it would take about 4.6 months to sell the ones that are currently available. All right? Fine. With more homes on the market, sellers might have to be a little more patient and perhaps a bit more willing to negotiate. This extra supply is the main reason why sales numbers are expected to go up, possibly reaching around 4.2 million homes sold. We'll get to what that means. The economy, steady as she goes. The overall health of the economy plays a huge role. For 2026, we're looking at pretty steady economic growth, with the gross domestic product, GDP, expected to grow between 2 and 2.25%. The unemployment rate is predicted to be around 4.7, which isn't bad at all. And inflation, while still a concern, is expected to settle down to somewhere between 2.3 and 3. These numbers paint a picture of an economy that's not overheating, but also not collapsing. This kind of environment supports a stable housing market, no sudden shocks that would send prices soaring or crashing. This is the thing. This is the direct counterbalance to what we're hearing, all this social media rhetoric that you hear out there on all these platforms. Is, do you see how many metrics they just used? Multiples. They didn't just hone in on one specific metric to say the conclusion is we're crashing or we're going to explode or any of that. They use multiple metrics to come to that conclusion. What a great way to do it, right? Using wisdom, logic, and reason. This is the graph that I was just going to share just to summarize where the market's heading, and we're going to wrap up, guys. All right, so to give you a clearer picture, let's break down some of the key predictions. Factor, home price change. Current late 2025 estimate, slight dip / plateau. The projected 2026 is plus 1% to 2.2%. That means the key takeaway is modest controlled growth, not a boom. Okay, so there's one data metric to validate the stability of the market. Home sales volume, number 2, 4.8 million in 2025, predicting 4.1 to 4.2, give or take. Gradual increase, but still below pre-pandemic. So no running away with home values, right? Crazy inflation. More of a stabilization, right? More balancing, more of a reset to what we've seen? Yeah, probably so. Number 3, 30-year mortgage rate. 2025, hover around 6.6, 6.7. What are we going to see in projected 2026? 6.3, right? Still elevated, impacting affordability. But here's the thing, if they drop that too fast or too great into the 5s, emotion triggers and things begin to take place, right? You don't want to do that. We don't want emotion to enter into the arena whatsoever. We want to lean into the data and the facts. Number 4, inventory, months of supply. They had 3 to 4 months of supply. In other words, if we quit listing property at all, we would run out of property 3 to 4 months. It's going to go up a little bit, 4.6, give or take. Improving supply, easing buyer pressure. In other words, the buyer won't feel as pressure to go immediately rush into buying a house. They can work with the sellers and negotiate because there's going to be more on the market to some degree. That's why there's going to be more months of supply, which that causes sellers to be more negotiable or to price more effectively to help get it sold. So that's what this means. Again, bringing more balance back into the market. All right, unemployment rate. I don't know why they don't have it there, but 4.7, healthy job market. Inflation, we're looking at 2.3 to 3%, cooling down, but still a factor. Still increasing, but again, that means it's not crashing, guys. Like, it's a rebalancing because we've had in the double digits, right? We've been in 7, 8% at the beginning of 2025. We dropped down to 4 and we dropped down to 3, and now we're going to hover around 2.3 to 3 going into 2026. So those that own are still increasing in value in their home. There's a rebalancing because more people are coming on the market, maybe having to reduce or be more negotiable. And then there's more buyers coming to the market because the job growth is still going well. Do you see how this balances out? Do you see what's happening here? Like, this is getting into the data and seeing the numbers from multiple angles. This is not just looking at one metric. This is looking at the entirety of the economy in 2026, in 2025, and what that might mean in 2026, going into 2026. Now, here's the thing. Can something change? Could a disaster happen? 100%. Something can happen. We're not fortune tellers here, but we can't then go back to leaning on to all of these things. Remember, going back to what I said at the very beginning, like, I'm going to make sure, like, I want to make sure that if I'm going to lean on something, if I'm going to put my feet into something, I'm going to make sure that what I put my feet in is the right place before I stand on that. So if I'm going to look at these numbers, my footing is going to be placed right there in the data from multiple sources of metrics to then anchor myself in. So then when as a real estate agent, when someone starts asking me how the market is, guess what? I have the information right here. I have this data to answer that question. If I go right here, I have it right there. There's what's going on. If you can explain these numbers, you can tell them exactly what's going on with the market. It's right there for you. It's clear as day. Look, 30-year fixed mortgage rates, historically projected. Look at 2021 down here. Oh, look how many years we've been right here, right? Look at the little drop there. Another visual. Regional differences. It's not the same everywhere. This is another point. Everything's local. And then they give a breakdown of the local areas. Maybe you're in these areas watching. There you go. There's some data on this site. Now, they give an assessment here. What about potential crashes or booms? When a crash could happen, but probably won't be big. Honestly, a nationwide crash where prices drop by 10 to 20% seems pretty unlikely. We have much stronger protections in place now than we did back in 2008. Again, those comparisons are like we're going back into a crash of 2008. Really, guys? The data is not even there. We don't have proprietary lending like we saw back then. Nothing even close. More regulatory uh, uh, passing of bills have happened on the lending industry. They can't do what they were doing. All right. Job losses. If the economy suddenly takes a nosedive and a lot of people lose their jobs, especially in high paying sectors, demand for homes could drop fast. So, more of a local position, right? Maybe a plant moves out of a certain area and that drops and that hurts that local unemployment rate, but then it builds up somewhere else. The same job, the same amount of people are still out there. They just boost up somewhere else. So, it's a very local thing. Surprise economic shocks. Imagine if a new trade disputes cause inflation to spike. So, these are variables. These are things that could happen. This is why you can't say for a definitive it's crashing or it's not. But what the data shows is that we're stabilizing, unless something like this happens. Disasters. When a boom might happen, but it will be gentle. A boom meaning prices shooting up by 5% or more nationwide also seems out of reach for 2026. Their major reason for this is affordability. Millennials and Gen Z buying. As younger generations move into their prime home buying years, there will naturally be more demand. More homes being built. If builders can find ways to offer incentives like helping with mortgage rates, they might pick up the pace of construction, adding more homes to the market. So, if more ways that they can navigate this begin to happen in the building market, okay, that should be a factor if that happens. But again, how likely are we to see that happen? I mean, the data is it's very marginal, right? Investors, people and companies who buy homes to rent out are still active in the market, and their steady buying supply helps support prices. Big picture, a reset, not a revolution. What a great statement. All right, let me just summarize this real quick. So we have multiple cases, multiple news articles where the forecast for 2026 is what I'm calling it a great housing reset. Okay, that's what the data shows to me. Given the current makeup, okay, given the current standard of what we see, it's a great housing reset, is what I would say. A gradual year of rebalancing and a return to what I would call probably more of a sustainable and, more importantly, a predictable growth. And that word predictable is key. Homeowners can understand that if 6 is the new 4, be comfortable with that. So if you bought and you need to sell, know that that's probably where we're going to be at. Buyers, it's predictable. You know what the rate's going to be. If you're thinking that it's going to drop drastically in 2026, I think you're highly mistaken, unless something drastic happens in the market. But it has to be, again, something drastic on both sides. Don't play the real estate gambling game. You need to buy, now's the time, because you could always refinance if not. But this is the time to buy. It's not waiting. It's not waiting. All right. So if I had to talk about buyer education, the psychology of buyers, agents, listen, educate buyers on what rebalancing of a market actually means. Use the data that I'm covering here in this show to show that while a crash is unlikely, the surge is unlikely, and 2026 offers more choices and stable prices than it ever has. Okay? So you need to get into the psychology of what this rebalancing and reset actually means with your buyers. Those buyer consultation guys are very, very crucial. Have the conversation. And now I'd also then begin to focus in on what is called the lock-in. The lock-in is those sellers that bought, back in 21 and 22 when the interest rate was really low, 3 and 4%. They feel locked in because if they were to sell their house and go buy somewhere else, they're going to have to be paying a higher interest, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case on every scenario. You got to do the math. If you go back a few episodes, I had a whole live stream talked about the math of mortgages, and it broke down exactly what that could mean, because there are some cases where they have enough equity in their home, especially if they're downsizing, that lock-in effect doesn't matter as much, because they're going to be able to go in even at a 6% mortgage and buy a home off the equity that they had in their house that they built up over the past few years and pay that one way down. So where their outgo is still way below what they're currently paying. And or maybe they could even pay off their entire mortgage with the equity they have in their house if they're looking to downsize. So if they've been holding back, you need to talk to them. But there's also this really sweet spot, because we're 2 years in to a higher interest rate, maybe almost 3. And there's people that have bought that are thinking about selling, but they're still watching the market and they're watching social media to get their information. If you're the agent that's speaking the truth, that market, so go back through your files and look for the people that you sold homes to 2, 3 years ago. Find out what their interest rate was for that loan. They're worth a call. They are worth a call, and explain to them, hey, you guys are not actually locked in anymore. If you're looking to sell, you might consider that, right? We're looking for homes to sell to the buyers that we have because we're going into a market where there's going to be a much larger buyer pool, and we want to get that home in the market immediately. And then I would absolutely, anytime you do data like this, you need to hone in regionally, locally, right? You need to focus on what is going on in your local market. So take everything I'm saying here, take it into your local MLS data, begin to pull those metrics and see what's actually going on. I think it's very, very crucial to do so. All right, guys, that is literally my summary of today's news. I've got one more live stream, guys. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Then I'm going to be off for a while. I'm taking off, like I said at the beginning of the live stream, I'll take off for a while. Just to be with the family and do some things with them. So I will be off work. I will probably be posting a few little TikToks and shorts and maybe some videos here. I've got some editing going on, and that will be posted as well. But as far as live stream goes, I will not be doing that. Tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, I'll be back here talking about some news. I'm toying with an idea right now for tomorrow's stream. What I'm actually thinking about doing is Inman has been running a few series of articles in response to the Google search of listings test that they experimented with. I think it was last week that they did this. I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to revisit that topic. I'm going to go back and revisit that topic. Not saying that they're going to do that, but I think there's some lessons we can learn and some opportunities that we can take that we're probably missing a little bit in regards to the power of Google and like how we can leverage some of these movements and shifts for our benefit. So I'm going to go into Inman. I'm going to read a few articles from them in regards to this Google acquisition or this Google testing and experimenting of displaying, listings directly in the search results, like you've kind of seen with hotels, and they can even click a button and go straight to the agent. I will probably be leaning into that. So come and show up tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern time. Let's have a conversation about that. And I challenge you guys, if you're watching now, go do some Google searching on this topic and come prepared to kind of have some dialogue with me as we wrap up the live stream for this year. But then I'm also going to be working on something. My ultimate goal is to try to help agents begin to build a structure of business around them where they know how to operate as business owners. But at the same time, I want to help a lot of the new agents that have entered into this industry that are truly lost. And what I'm thinking about doing, or I'm not thinking about doing, I'm going to do this, is I'm going to film a multiple series of short videos walking through a new licensed agent for the first 28 days of real estate. And these first 28 days, every day they're going to have some action items. And those action items are things that they can implement very easily that begins to build a solid foundation of replicatable systems that they should be doing every single day. And the reason why I'm going to be doing this, and if you're even an experienced agent, come watch the videos. And if you are an experienced agent, what I would encourage you to do is help contribute to the new agent. We want, I understand there's competition and all that kind of stuff. But guys, there is a lot of people that want to make a living in real estate, and there's a whole lot of opportunity. Let's give back. Let's help support them. And there's ways we can do that. So if I make these posts, I encourage you guys to engage with me on them, leave comments for new agents. And I think even as an experienced agent, you're going to get some insights out of this because I'm guilty of this as I've been going through my notes and kind of working through what I used to do and tailoring this and drafting this up. It's like it's a very good practice for me to self-reflect and say, man, this is the simplicity of being a real estate agent, really in a nutshell. And we've overcomplicated a lot of things. So I'm trying to get it back to a very simple way of doing things. So I think there's even a benefit for experienced agents here. But in the comments, I want you guys engaging. I want you guys talking. So with all that being said, I do appreciate you guys being here, taking the time out of your day. I don't take it for granted. I really want to make sure that if you are watching, that I take the time to help you in some way, show you where the opportunities are inside of the news cycles, and then give you some really actionable takeaways that you can apply into your business and help you build a strong foundation that you're in it for the long haul. So hopefully that's the goal. If that is what you are receiving out of this, consider, subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking this video, commenting and engaging with me. Really want to build a community where we help and support one another. And then, of course, ring the bell so you get notified every time I go live. That does help as well. And then, follow me on TikTok. I am on TikTok. It's so weird me saying that. Oh my gosh. I am on TikTok because I feel like there's a whole group of people that are on TikTok that is, and I mean this with all sincerity, is misfed so much bad information. It because the as good as it is to get communication out, I don't think they are relying on the data correctly. There is because it's so simple to pick up your phone and just immediately make a recording and just wing it without any responsibility for doing so. And as I was perusing through TikTok just this weekend, it was inundated with so much just hype because someone just wanted to beat the algorithm. It's actually kind of exhausting. It's like, it's just a bunch of rhetoric. And I get the game. I get the game. But can we take a step back and hone in? So I just feel like we need a voice somewhere that is kind of bringing some thought into this. So I'm hopeful that that's what's happening here. So as much as I don't care much for social media, I think it's needed. I think it's a very important thing. So anyway, with all that being said, guys, again, I thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Hopefully you got something of value. Keep coming back. Again, I'll be back 8:30 Eastern time tomorrow morning for the last stream of this year. And in the meantime, it's Monday. Get out there, make some things happen. Let's kind of go through some of our metrics. Let's begin to get ready for 2026. Think through this, and ultimately, really find some time to rest with your family over the holiday season and Christmas. I appreciate you guys. Have an amazing day. We'll see you tomorrow.